Hello all, this is Wasim. Welcome back to my channel Wagon Picks. Hope you are all doing good, and I'm very happy to be with you all again on a very interesting topic. The topic which we are going to discuss today is React.memo and use callback hook. So use memo, we have already seen this in our previous tutorial. I would request you to go through that tutorial first for those who have not gone through the tutorial, because that will be helpful to understand the concept in today's tutorial. So to begin with, the points which we will be going through today are need of React.memo. Why do we need React.memo? Second point which we'll covering is implementation of React.memo, how we can use React.memo. Third point which we'll cover is need of use callback hook. Fourth is example and implementation of callback hook. I would like to tell you that use callback is again one of the important hook which is majorly used for optimization purpose. So we'll go through it. We'll go through the requirement of use callback in this tutorial. So let's get started. So I have created a base code over here. So index.js is the base file, and in this file I am importing app.js, and in app.js I am just written a heading. I have just given a heading and aligned this to center. So this is our basic structure. So for those who don't who are not understanding the basic structure of React, I would request you to go through my previous videos where I've explained all the concept in detail. Okay, and also please like, share and subscribe my channel. So I will quickly go and format the document. Okay, here we have, and to start with, the first point which we'll look into is React.memo. To understand the usage of React.memo, let us quickly create two components here. Component.one.js. Okay, and let us name the other component as js, and in component.one I will import React from React constant component1. I will need to define the JSX part in return. In this we need to define a division. We are in component1, just typing some dummy content to make sure that this is working fine. We need to export the return value. Component1. Okay, I will just copy this and paste it into component2. I'll just rename the file. So we have defined two components, component1 and component2, and I will quickly import these two components into parent component app.js. So that is component1, component2. Okay, we have got both the components into the parent component. So along with this, let us go ahead and define a button. So what this button does is, when I click on this button, I should increment a value by 1 and paste it to show it on the screen by 1. Let us name the button as increment by 1, and on click of this, I will call a function called increment by 1 constant. To store the incremented value and to display, we need to define a use state, constant. Let us name the variable as increment 1, value 1, and let us set the value 1 with this variable, and finally we need to define the use state, and the initial value of this value 1 will be 0. So we have already seen the use state in our previous tutorials. You can go through those tutorials and understand the concept of use state. So when I click on this function will be called, and in this function I will just increment the value 1 to 1. Okay, I will increment this to 1, and after increment I need to show this value below this button, value 1. Okay, so here we have, when I click on this, the value is increasing. So till this point we are clear. Now let us see one thing. We are printing this, we are in component 1, but let us type a console over here. Let us try to see how this component renders. Component 1, okay, let us type render component 1. I will type the same console in component 2. So I just want to see how this rendering of these two child components happen. Okay, so here we have, so these two values are printed, and when I click on this, so these two child components are rendering, which is not required. Okay, because I have defined this button over here. I'm clicking on this button, this function is called, and I am increasing this value, and I am printing this value below this button. So why these two components are rendering? This is not required. I'm not passing any props, not calling any function in this component. So this is unrequired rendering. To avoid this unrequired rendering, we use React.memo. So how we avoid this? To avoid this, we will just add a React.memo in the export. Okay, similarly I will add over here. So what this does is it stores the return value, the return JSX part into the memory, and whenever there is this component is called and there is no passage of props or any use effect change, at that time the stored return value is passed without rendering the component. Okay, so now let us see. I'll remove this. Okay, the first two prints are uh, the component mount print, and when I click, see the in count value is increasing, but I am not, the component is not rendering. So this is the optimization technique which is used in React using React.memo. Now the second point is use callback. To understand the concept of use callback, what I will do is I will quickly, instead of uh, displaying the value in this component, I will display this into component 1. Okay, I will just pass this value to component 1. How I will pass, I'll pass it as props. So I will take this. Okay, I'm just passing this value in this. This is coming in this form. Value is, I will just print this value in component 1. Let me check. Okay, we are increasing and the value is getting printed in component 1. So now what we will do is we will define one more increment function, and this time we'll increase the value by 2. Okay, we'll take different use state and we'll take different function and increase the value by 2. So let me quickly go and define the function first. By 2. And for this, let me define a use state value to set to define the use state, and initial value of this number is 0, and let us quickly, so when this function is called, I will increase the value by 2. I just need to add a 2 number to this. Okay, and what I will do is, instead of printing or defining the button in this component, I will define the button and printing in component 2. For that, what I have to do is I have to pass this entire function to component 2. Okay, as we have passed this value, now in this component we are just printing the value, but in second component we'll pass the entire function and define a button in component 2. So we can pass a function similarly as we have passed the value. So let me define the function name as increment 2. Okay, I will quickly pass this component 2. This is coming over here. The function is here, and in this component what I will do, I will define a button to, okay, and on click of this button, I am just calling this function. Along with this function we also need to print the value. So to print the value, again we need to pass this variable, this state value, to component 2, because we need to print this, because the increment 2 value is incrementing and it is stored in value 2, which is not available to 2. So we will pass that in props. Okay, so this is the value which we are passing. and this is the name of this value. So remember one thing, like you can keep the same name. Here the value of function is increment by 2, and I have given the name of this function, the which is getting passed, which you can call prop, as increment 2. So the name is different, but you can keep the same name, no matters, it will work. So but whatever name you have defined for props, you need to use the same name into your component. So in this, okay, this is here value 2, and value is this. Okay, so what we did was we defined a increment 2 function over here, and the entire function we have passed to component 2 as props, and the incremented value, or the incremented value, we are passing that as well as a props. Okay, so when I see here, component 2, I will just take this down, it's not looking good. Okay, okay, do you see this? So when I click on this, the value is increasing by 1, and when I click on this, the value is increasing by 2. Okay, we have got the functionality of this code. Now what we need to look into is, I just want to look into this console. Okay, whatever things we are printing, when I increment it by 1, see again the both the components are rendering. We have already given a use React.memo, but still the component 2 is rendering, which has nothing to do with when I increment the value by 1. And when I click on increment 2, only component 2 is rendering. So why is this happening? So this is happening because when I click on this button, okay, this function is called, and when this function is called, these set value 1, this state is updated, and when this state is updated, the this function, this component is rendered. So when this component is rendered, at that time this function is also rendered. Okay, in React, every time a component re-renders, the function passed as props are considered as new. So every time when the state gets updated, this function will be considered as new by React. So this the passing function will be considered as new value, and the component 2 will be re-rendered. So to handle this, we have use callback. So when this function is called, I just need to uh, include this into a use callback. Okay, so how will I do that? Use callback. This is the first parameter for use callback, and the second parameter is the variable which is to be considered as dependent variable. So this is the dependent variable. So what we are telling to the component is, whenever the component is rendering, and we are passing this function as a props to any child component, in that case we are telling that only execute this function if the value 2 is changed, otherwise send whatever is stored in the memory. Okay, with this what happens, let me check. Okay, now these are the two mounting console, and when I click on this, first console is printing. When I click on this, second console is printing. So we avoided the re-entering of second component by using use callback. Okay, so this was all about use callback. uh, Hope you understood all the points and concepts. Please do let me know if you have any kind of questions in my comment box. I will come up with the answers. Thank you so much for being with me on this tutorial, and have a great day. Bye bye.